Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by the man who many are calling the Travis Hunter of podcasting. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Does that mean I can do what is my two-way excellence here?
I think it's I don't know. You can you great insight and you're funny.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I think
people are saying it. I don't know.
Things. Yeah, I guess it's out there. It's out in the ether, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think maybe some people might call me a zero-way podcaster, Kyle, but we do our best here.
Definitely try our best. That's for sure. We're both great. What are you talking about?
Okay. Well, Kyle, always fun to get into the draft stuff. What we are going to do today is go through the top 10 edge rushers in this draft class, top 5 interior defensive linemen in this draft class, top 3 off-ball linebackers, because there's not that many of those, and then top 5 secondary players. So we have a ton to get into in this podcast.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. A lot of pretty interesting names in this draft. Not necessarily the deepest defensive draft I've seen, but there are some pretty good names at the top of this draft, I think, still.
Interesting, because I have the exact opposite take. I think this is a deep class. I think this is not a very top-heavy class.
I don't know. Maybe these depth players will prove me wrong. I like some of the guys at the very first round a lot. The guys I have in the top 2 or 3 for each position group, I think are going to be pretty good players. Everyone else, I'm just kind of in a wait and see mode, honestly. As for the defensive side, I think offensive side's a little bit hit or miss too, honestly. But
okay, well let's not waste time. Why don't we just jump into it? You want to start off with the edge rushers?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so again, if you're new here, the way we do this is I'm going to give my list. Kyle also has a list of his own. He will reveal where that player ended on his list when we go through my list. But first, I'm starting off with a player who, I think some people are higher on than me. I'm going Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I guess I should probably start off by saying I don't love this edge class in general. It's getting talked about a lot as a really good edge class. I just kind of disagree. But yeah, this is the player who, quite frankly, I pay attention to like analytics and things like that. When it comes to edge rushers, his aren't great. An okay pass rush win rate, but I don't really fully know what he is. He's 6'4", 285 as an edge guy. I don't know if that will work. He moves well for his size, but I don't know if he can do it as an edge. So I still have him on the list. I still think there's interesting aspects of him. He's still only 20, but ultimately I have him at number 10.
Yeah, I have him at number 9. I feel the same way. I think that there's a little bit of a limited skill set here. So I think there is some things he's going to have to work on to hit that next level. But yeah, I think overall, these Texas A&M guys really kind of confuse me a little bit. And there's a lot that I still think he has to work on as a player. Yeah.
Is number 8 on the consensus big board, but considered a high second round pick, maybe because sneak into the first. I just don't. There's just a projection with him. And I guess, we don't spend forever on him because there's definitely projections we have still to talk about.
There is a lot of projections to talk about for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's just move on. Why don't we? Let's go to number 9 on my list. That was number 8. Spoiling my list here a little bit. Kyle, how do I say this name?
Princely Uman. I have no idea.
Princey you. Listen, really good pass rush stuff from him. He's got good hands. He's fast. He's not a run defender. You're probably not going to get more than 500 snaps out of him. He also is a one-year wonder, and is a guy who finds himself on the ground quite a lot. So, good speed rush. What else can he do, though? I think it could be maybe a third down edge rusher, but again, is he more than that?
Yeah. And that's ultimately why I had him off the list. I think there are some things to like about him. Like you said, he is quick off the line of scrimmage, and he can beat his man that way. But ultimately, I do view him kind of as a specialist, and I just don't know if I want to draft a specialist that highly. So I think there are guys who maybe have a little bit more upside that could be more complete players, well-rounded players that aren't as quick as him off the line of scrimmage. And I think I've rated those guys a little bit higher than him.
Yeah, and just so people know where we're at right now, I have him as a mid-second round pick. So that's kind of how I view him. I think, and quite frankly, I think there's a lot of specialists in this draft class.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. Like, I think that it is part of the problem with this edge rusher class, but there is a yeah, I just think that, he has some impressive things that jump off the screen when you watch him, but at the same time, there's just still I, I don't know. Do you see a scenario where he ever becomes a like every down defensive end? I don't see it.
No, no. And in fact, I will say the same thing about my number 8 player, Braden Swinston, who I kind of feels very similar. Pass rush guy, has a great pull club move, has good hands, but he's just, again, he's not a run defender. He's a 500 snap a year guy only playing on third downs.
Yeah. I did have him on the list. I actually had him number 7. I do agree with you that he still has a lot of stuff to work on because he is, like I said, another specialist in this class. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I think the one thing I do like is that he seems a little bit bigger than Princely at times. I think their
Mhm.
measurements actually ended up pretty comparable. But I just think he stands out as a little bit bigger, and I think can play the run slightly better, and that's why I like him a little bit more.
He plays stronger. Yeah, he's someone who, if he's out there in a running play, he has a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's just, he's not a straight line rusher. He's not looking to blitz the quarterback every play. I think that there's a little more to his game and he has that upside, but it's still a long way to go as far as he's going to be an every down player.
Yeah. Well, let's keep plowing ahead here. Let's get to a player who I believe is yeah, he's actually number 32 on the consensus big board right now. Although I still do not have a first round grade on him. Donovan Izaraku, Donovan Ezaraku, I believe is how you say it. I wrote it down, but then I butchered the phonetics pronunciation that I had. Boston College guy, has good analytics in Boston College, good hands at the line. He's quick at the line, although I don't know if I would call him a fast player as a whole. Also, we'll miss some tackles. We'll take some poor angles. And quite frankly, he's just an inconsistent player. I think that when you get him at his best, you can see why he has that first round upside. But I just wanted to see it on a more game in and game out basis.
Yeah. I have him fourth. I mean, I do like
Okay.
him. I think he is a very complete player. I mean, like you said, is the consistency part of the problem sometimes? I think so, but I don't think he got the 14 sacks on accident last season or whatever that number was. I thought he rushes really well. He got after the quarterback a lot, and I didn't think that was a fluky sack, maybe a little higher than expected, but I didn't think it was a completely fluky sack number. I think he has a really refined skill set. I think he's really smart, and I think he has several pass rush moves that I think work in his favor. I think he could be a very good pass rusher in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I agree ultimately that I think he's a quality player. I don't know what I still feel like we're in the stretch of I don't see him as like a every down player.
Interesting.
Not because he's bad at run defense. I just don't know if he's like that good of a player. Like I don't know if he's like a 900 snap a year guy.
Yeah, maybe, and that could just be the state of this class, honestly.
Hmm.
But I think he's someone that skill set wise, and like I said, football IQ wise, I would just take a chance on.
Yeah, I suppose I just think it's like you're getting a guy who I wouldn't necessarily consider overly fast or explosive, who's also 6'2". Like it's the body thing as well. The
Yeah.
6'2" is not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy. I get it. The results are the results, and I do like results. So you could talk me into bumping him up a couple spots, but ultimately, I'm just not crazy about him.
Yeah. He is smaller, but I think I think that also means he could probably play in a 3-4 and do some different things that way. But you ultimately want this guy rushing the passer. That's his strongest skill. And he's got to show off that he could be a little more versatile than that too.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to possibly one of the most controversial prospects that we have talked about in quite some time. He does make my list. I think a surprise to some people is I don't actually hate this prospect, but Shamar Stewart is still at number 6 here. I still do not have a first round grade on Shamar Stewart, despite the fact that he is currently 15th on the consensus big board. Kyle, what's your take on Shamar Stewart?
Um, I don't think he's very good.
Mm-hmm.
I have him 8th on my board.
Yeah.
I think I'm even lower than you are. I mean, look, this guy, I mean, I think he was the number 1 prospect in his class. If not, he was, top 5 or whatever. He's a, big, high potential athlete. He is fast, he is strong, all that kind of stuff. But, I think you have to be good at football. And
Yeah.
I just don't know if he's good at football.
Right. If you take out how he plays at football, he's a great prospect.
Yeah, and I just, I think these are the guys I think that bother me the most in draft process that we're going to fall in love with. Someone's going to talk themselves into it in the first round. And I get the
Yeah.
idea of it. You have good coaches and you're going to believe in your coaching staff and your process and that sort of situation. But ultimately, like, I think that this is a game that we've had several years of tape on this guy, and I just haven't really seen the production or, what we've needed to see out of this guy to have me convinced that he could be a good player in the NFL. So I understand the skill set, I understand the athleticism, the traits, the intangibles. Those things do help. Obviously, you'd rather have, you want a guy with good intangibles, good traits, but he has to be good at football. I just think that's the problem.
Yeah. Well, let me give some positives for Stewart, since apparently I am high on him, which is, I don't think anyone saw that coming. But I mean, again, some people are way higher on him than I am, but I think he should be, at worst, a pretty solid situational run defender. He is actively a good run stopper. He does use his power very well, and he does move for his size. He also played multiple positions at Texas A&M, which is part of why his stats aren't that good. I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't think a lot of his moves will work in the NFL, and I do think he's going to have to. He's a complete project as a player, but he is still just 21. So that's why, again, I feel like round 2, go for it. He's someone who will probably add some value, get you some snaps, and has potential to grow into a like sort of like how Trayvon Walker did. If you're drafting him at 15th, I think it's a bad idea, but second round, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just the thing. If he goes in the first round, then there's expectations, and that's part of the problem. I think if he goes round 2, round 3, I feel better about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just I think it's a long way before he's a competitive player. But you don't players that are 6'6" and 290 that can run just don't come around very often, and that's why he's going to get drafted and ultimately get an opportunity. So I completely understand the situation, but I think it's just going to take a long, long time before I'm convinced he's going to be a player.
Yeah. I think we're probably in agreement on where he is. Maybe you just like a couple of the other edge rushers more than I do. Let's move on. Let's go to number 5, another developmental guy, Mikael Williams, who I will say, okay, I look at the numbers and all that, and I'm like, I don't love this, but he's only 20. He is a big, powerful guy who gets good push and run defense, adds value there. He did play multiple positions because he went to Georgia, and that's what you do there. It's good footwork, and his wins are awesome. The highlight reel is great. The issue is, again, he played about 400 snaps each of the last 3 years. He didn't improve that much from year 2023 to 2024, and quite frankly, he just doesn't win a lot in general. So again, I still don't know if I like him in the first round, but I do see some potential. He is very much a project player, in my opinion.
He is still a project player. I do have him 5th because I do think he's better than Stewart at just winning and getting some wins at the line of scrimmage. And also, I think he is a very good run defender. I think that is a part of his game. Now, granted, we had this conversation before about a few prospects. Do you want to draft a run defender at the edge position in round 1, early round 2? I think that could be up for debate for sure. But he is very good at that at minimum, and maybe he develops into a pretty good pass rusher too, and that's a pretty good defensive lineman to have on your team. Maybe he's not the number 1 defensive lineman on your team, but maybe he could be like a number 2 guy next to a good edge rusher. But yeah, I think that there is a more tantalizing skill set here than Stewart, in my opinion, and that's why I have him higher. And yeah, I think that it's not a awesome win percentage, but it's at least a better win percentage.
Yeah, I agree. And the wins are like, I think like Shamar Stewart's wins are basically he just picks a spot, runs to it, and like beats his guy. Like Williams has more like translatable wins, I would say. And he's only 20 years old, so there is that. Just an interesting question in the chat. Just talking about Stewart, but I think it applies for Williams as well. If he gives you what Walker does, and Walker went first overall, how is Stewart a second round talent? Well, for one thing, I didn't think Trayvon Walker should have gone first overall. And if as that was well established back during that draft, but also I think that's the ceiling. I'm not saying I think either of these guys will get there, and that's ultimately why I don't want to take a chance on these players when I could rather have a player I just trust to be good.
Yeah. Not to mention, for all the stuff we gave Walker, I think Walker was a better player than Stewart was in college even. I think that it...
At least a pass rusher.
Yeah. So I think that it's not necessarily a binary thing because I think Walker is a better athlete, which is saying a lot because Stewart is a very, very good athlete.
I mean,
Uh,
Trayvon Walker is like the best athlete like ever, like in humans. Like he's
yeah.
like number one. Like that's another aspect of that.
Yeah. He is a better athlete still, and Stewart is a very good athlete. But yeah, I also think he was just better at the game. And I think that adds to it for me.
Yeah. So let's get into the guys that I do have a first round grade on. Four of them on this list. One of them is I think an underrated player here. I'm going Jack Sawyer here out of Ohio State, who is not considered too high of a prospect. He's 54th on the consensus big board, which is kind of around that 10 range. But I like him. Okay. He's not the fastest guy, and I don't know what his ceiling is, but he has power. He has good hands. There's a lot of movement when he plays, and he's had multiple years of good production. He's a violent player. He'll play after the whistle, and so ultimately, he's kind of what I'm talking about. Of like, I just trust that he's going to be an effective player. Is he going to be a star? I don't know. I think he's going to come in and help whichever team drafts him. So that's why I have him here. Kyle, is this too high?
It's a little high for me. I do have him 10. I understand. I think he plays very, very hard, and I think that's something I really like. And like you said, he is pretty refined. I just think, some of those guys that were mentioned before, even though I would want to root for a guy like Jack Sawyer, I think more than some of the guys that, I don't think have as refined of a skill set because like I said, he does work very hard. I just think the athletic traits are a little behind for me. And like, is he going to have the actual speed to get to a quarterback in the NFL is my biggest question. But like you said, I think he plays hard. I think he's going to have a chance. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he sticks in the league.
Yeah. He looks chubby. He needs to go to a team that wears black, I think.
But yeah, he needs something slimming.
Yeah, I think so.
Raider,
yeah.
Him and Max Crosby, that's a Raider duo.
Yeah. No, he would work in the Raiders uniform, I think. I think that works.
Yeah. Or maybe just shed a few more pounds, right?
maybe that's a possibility as well. I don't know. This is a good point as well. Are you guys counting Jahad Campbell and Jalen Walker as edges? I'm counting Jalen Walker, but not Campbell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I did have Walker in linebackers, but I can.
Okay. Well, gotcha. We sorry about that. We can. We probably should have clarified that before we went on to live, but that's okay.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I guess we didn't have that straightened out, but yeah, I like him too. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, now we're going to a guy who, again, you think number 3 edge rusher. Wow, this is a real player I must be really high on. This is still a back half of the first round guy, although a lot of people view him as a potential top 10 pick. I'm going Mike Green out of Marshall, who, again, there's a lot of really good stuff on tape. He's number 18 on the consensus big board, so I guess I'm not that far behind where people view him. But, playing at Marshall, you don't go up against the great competition. That's just part of it. Obviously, he has had some, off the field issues to say the least. He, had some sexual assault allegations. He went to Virginia and they had like a no nonsense policy. If anything comes up, you're going to get, axed. And basically something came up and they without even looking into it, just said, you're out of here. Goes to Marshall, does finally have a good year in about 700 snaps, does play very well, is a high motor player, does have great numbers. The thing is just it's the Marshall and it's a 1-year wonder thing. I don't know it feels like there's a projection here, so I'm just stocking him kind of for that. And also the off the field stuff is always going to be concerning, and certain teams aren't going to draft him because of that.
Yeah, understand completely all of that. Just as far as the football stuff goes, he's looked very good every time he's played, right? When he has played, he's looked very, very good. There is a lot of talent here to work with. It looks like he could be a huge factor in both pass rushing and run defending. He seems like a pretty complete player. And like you said, there's not a ton of like every down players, it seems like, in this draft. And he comes off as a guy who could be an every down player and maybe high ceiling every down player. I think that's kind of a rare thing. And I think that's why he's going to get drafted pretty highly, I think, in this draft. I do like him. I have him 3rd overall as well.
Yeah. You're right. The upside is there. I mean, his pass rush win rate was over 20%. I mean, this is the guy who's just like, again, it's all of my negatives. None of them have anything to do with football. It's all like not a lot of playing time, not great competition to go up against, which is kind of about football, but not like issues with him. His tape is great. I get it.
Yeah. No, I think that there is a lot to like. So yeah, it's all off the field stuff, but I think that's valid reason to have questions for sure, especially given the allegations and things like that. But there is just so much to like as far as what he does on the field and what he can produce. I think he could be a very good player starting day one.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to number 2 on my list. Maybe a bit of a hot take here. A guy who I do think is a potential top 10 pick caliber player, who I don't think is going to go there. James Pierce Jr. Out of Tennessee. Now, he also has, I guess, on the sideline concerns, not this podcast, but there's people have said that he's not coachable and things like that. So, okay, that's, worth noting as well. But I just really like him. I think against good competition, he had really good numbers. He has good speed and power. The combination works. I know you see 243 at 6'5" doesn't seem great, but he has power. He can stop there. He actually played well in coverage. When he had to go back and do that, he was good. Really good run stop rate. Good stats across the board. Again, he's a good athlete. Good technique. I like him a lot. I think he's an underrated prospect.
Yeah. We're in lockstep here because I also have him number 2. Yeah, very, very, it's the nice blend of a player who's incredibly athletic who also seems to be good at the sport. And that's kind of what you want. That's the bridge you want. He doesn't just win with speed. He doesn't just win with power. He wins with moves. He has, good hands, I think, overall, too. He does all of these things pretty well. And also he's a great athlete, which is all just put together into a very good player. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I think that there is extreme upside here. And if I were to bet on, obviously there's one guy at the top who I think has star potential. If I were going to bet on somebody else who I think has star potential, it's going to be James Pierce.
How do you view the conspiracy theory that it's Howie Roseman leaking that James Pierce has a character concerns, trying to get him to fall to 32?
Guess it wouldn't be too shocking, right? If they do take him, that would be very funny.
Yes, that feels right. That feels like we can't let that happen.
Yeah, they can get somebody else. They can get Shamar Stewart.
Yeah, I think so. Well, let's move on to number 1. Who? Yeah, I mean it's obvious. Abdul Carter is number 1. Kyle, he's number 1 for you as well, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So he is fantastic. Complete edge rusher. Super quick off the line of scrimmage. Some of the quickest first steps it feels like I've ever seen as far as a prospect goes. He just bursts off the line. And yeah, I think you could make a very strong argument he is the best prospect in this draft, and I wouldn't argue it too much. He is extremely talented, extremely versatile at the line of scrimmage, and I think he's going to be a star.
Yeah, I really like him. I will say, I think he is definitively the 3rd best prospect in this draft class. Behind, Cam Ward, I guess depends on how you view him. But I think he's the 2nd best non-quarterback in this process. We'll talk about the best later on in this video. But I
would too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the expectations have gotten a little out of hand with Abdul Carter. I really like Abdul Carter. I think he is so explosive at the line, like you're saying. He has a deadly spin move. There's his footwork is great. I do think the Micah Parsons comparisons, they're true in run defense, I would say. I don't know if they're that's a lot to ask of someone. He isn't the best run defender, and I do wish he got more of his wins of power. So, again, I would draft him number 3 overall in a heartbeat, but I think it's the Marvin Harrison Jr. thing, right? Where it's all of a sudden it's an insult to say that maybe he's just going to be really good.
Yeah, it is almost one of those things where it's you're going to compare him to one of the best players in the game, and it's almost unfair to start, right?
Yeah.
He isn't, as I said, he is one of the quickest players I've ever seen as far as a draft prospect goes off the line of scrimmage. He still isn't a Myles Garrett level prospect to me.
Right.
I don't think he's that level of ceiling. I think he has very, very, very good ceiling, even all pro ceiling, but I don't know if he has Myles Garrett, best defensive player in the world stores ceiling. But maybe he will be. We'll see. But yeah, I think that is there's still a huge step for him there. And, if it takes a year, if he has a 6, is it going to be another Chase Young thing where it's and he is a pretty good player still, but it's not quite what we wanted.
Yeah, and Chase Young was a better prospect in college than Abdul Carter was. Young's that's kind of a weird thing that happened. Chase Young was a better prospect than like Nick Bosa was, right?
Yeah.
I think Carter is. I don't know if I'm quite on the he's that level of prospect, but I think he's close, not too far behind.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, it's just there are going to be plays where he makes offensive tackles look silly because he just blows past them,
Yeah.
or he's going to spin around them in a Dwight Freeney style move, and like you said, it is devastating.
Yeah, no, he's a great player. So yeah, Abdul Carter, that is our top 10 edge rushers. We'll hold off on Jalen Walker, I guess, because you had him as a off-ball linebacker. We'll talk about that when we get to off-ball linebackers. Was there anyone else you wanted to talk about?
JT Tuimoloau out of Ohio State. I think he's a pretty complete player overall. He's not the best pass rush win rate, but I think he's pretty okay. And he's big. I think he's someone who could be versatile enough to be, maybe play even inside some possessions as far as a 4-3 goes, and play some defensive tackle, also play the edge, maybe play a 3-4 defensive end too. I just like a lot of what he does, and I think he's a pretty well-rounded player overall as well.
Yeah, another guy I'm just kind of not sure exactly what to do with. I think he could be a pretty solid run defender. He is good at run defense, but I think I don't see him as much of a pass rusher.
Yeah, bit of a tweener, right? I think that's his biggest issue. Is like he's got to show that he could be one or the other. And you know what? Maybe we've seen the value of maybe he does go into an interior defensive line role in the NFL, and we've seen the value of a very good pass rushing interior defensive lineman. Maybe that's where he finds his niche.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. Anyone else?
No, that was about it. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to the interior defensive lineman. Let's just jump into the list. Starting off with number 5, I am going player out of Indiana, CJ West here, who a player that I do think a player I like. So he's someone who, again, definitely a more of a run defender than a pass rusher, but I think he has good hands there. And I sort of compared him like almost like a car in neutral just going down a hill, where it's like it starts to go and then it's just like it's hard to stop. It just keeps moving. So as a whole, high motor player, good run defender, someone who probably I could see him being in the NFL for 10 years.
I could definitely see him being in the NFL for 10 years. I see a scenario where that happens. The only question I have for him, and ultimately why I just kept him off my top 5, is like, is he too short to be a really good run defender, which is honestly his best skill. He's kind of the run stuffing defensive tackle, but he's also a shorter version of that player. And, you just don't see that kind of player work all the time.
Yeah. I agree, which is ultimately why I like player 4 a little bit more. That's Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, who I think is kind of a similar player, but just a little bigger, a little taller, and has a little bit more power. And he's someone who he gets double teamed on every snap in college because teams just pay attention to him. Also, not someone who's a great pass rusher and is kind of a 1-year wonder, but just 21 years old. So I have him at 4.
Yeah. I agree with that. I had him number 2, actually. I think he is I think that, like you said, he is I think he's actually pretty versatile. He's pretty athletic. And like you said, there is the athleticism there and the size that I think is pretty tantalizing as far as a player goes. So yeah, I think that he could be a pretty good player from day one and going forward. I know that's a tough position at defensive tackle to translate into, but I think that there is an interesting skill set there and a reason why I like him.
Yeah, he's currently 3rd on the consensus big board, so we're kind of in between both of where we're at. But there's everyone's close with the 2, 3, and 4 players there. So yeah, I mean, again, I see it. I think part of it comes down to just like how much do you value a player like Walter Nolan? Some teams really value this guy. Some teams don't value this guy at all.
Yeah, I don't mind. I like having those kind of players. I think having a guy who can at least take care, a really good nose tackle, defensive tackle can solve a run defense almost instantly. And like, look, the impact of run defense, you could say, how important is it? I still think you don't want to be the worst at run defense or anything like that. And having a player that can fix it by himself almost is a huge luxury to have.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I didn't really realize this, but kind of my next guy is also in that sort of build, I'm going with one of the Michigan players, Kenneth Grant here at number 3. Another guy who I think is just
Mhm.
a good run defender. I will say, for a guy who's 340, you would like to see him, I feel like, especially in pass protection, not get pushed around as much as he does. But is still a guy who, again, it's big body in the middle. I think he can anchor really well versus double teams and run defense and moves well for his size. So, yeah, he's number 3 on my list.
Yeah, he's third on my list too. He is quick. Like you said, he could take on double teams. He is, he can move guys back in single coverage too. A lot to really like about him. And, I'm running out of ways to describe good run stuffing defensive tackles.
We get it. Yeah, we understand here. We can just move on. We can save some time here as we went a little bit long on edge rushers by going to number 2, who Kyle just doing the math in my head. Either you really like him or really don't, or just are lower on him. Derek Harmon out of Oregon is my number 2 player, a guy who can rush the passer as well, not just a run defender. That's fun. Really good, actually, pass rush win rate, 17.6 for an interior guy. That's very good. I do have to say, when taking my notes, I realized that Ohio State might just have a bad interior or something, because I feel like every time I watched interior defensive lineman went off against Ohio State, so that was kind of a thing. Listen, I don't think he has the most versatility in this class. I think that there aren't a ton of different pass rush moves, but I think that he's someone who, while he will miss his hands sometimes, has good enough hands, good length, good footwork. I like him enough to draft him in the first round.
Yeah, I do like him too. I actually have him number 4th. I kind of like the interior defensive lineman of this class mainly. I think that's really just where I'm at. Like, I think there's enough like solid players that I'm okay with it. And yeah, I think if you wanted to bet on a pass rusher from this position, or someone who can't, an interior defensive lineman who can rush the passer from this position, you're probably going to take him higher than the other guys. I just think those guys have higher floors, and honestly could be, kind of really, high level run stuffing defensive tackles. And those are things that I think can be very valuable, where, I don't think he has that high of a ceiling as far as that position goes. And like you said, he needs to provide that as a pass rusher. And we saw it in flashes, I think, at Oregon, and we want to see it at the next level.
Yeah. Let's move on to number 1, who is going to be number 1 on, I'm assuming, your board as well, and many other people's boards. Mason Graham here, a guy who really impressed with Mason Graham. Amazing in run defense. Also can rush the passer, although he's more of a run defender, but definitely can rush the passer as well. Really good hands. I think players will just fall off of him when they're trying to block him sometimes. So he's really good player out of Michigan. He's someone who many people felt could be worth a top 5 overall pick. I think in most draft classes, I would say that's a little bit much. In this draft class, maybe because of I think it's a weaker draft class. I have him, around that. I have him around, I thought, where a top 10 pick would be usually, or top 12 pick. But in this draft class, that might be worth a top 5 pick.
Yeah, very skilled player, very quick. Kind of a menace at the defensive line. He's someone that people have been excited about for a couple of years now. He's shown up in big games. He does a little bit of everything, it felt like, for Michigan for the last couple seasons. I really like him. I have him number 1 as well. And similarly, I think that there's a very defined top 2 prospects in this draft as far as the non-quarterbacks go. If you're going to say who's your third non-quarterback of this draft, I could listen to an argument for him for this one. And I don't think it's crazy either. I think he has a really nice skill set, and he just feels like the kind of player that's going to be, it's not the most exciting pick of the first round, but it's like 10, 15 years from now, you're going to be like, this guy's still on his team, still doing his thing, and is still a very, very good player and productive. So I think that's something that it feels like the safest pick of the draft, getting a guy like Mason Graham.
Yeah. My biggest concern is I feel like every draft I fall in love with one interior defensive lineman that ends up only being okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe. I just, I think it, at minimum, he's going to be good. That's just kind of where I'm at. And
I like him. I think he'll be good.
Yeah. So, I think he has all pro potential, but at the very least, I think he's going to be a very good player for 10, 15 years on a franchise.
Would you be mad if the Patriots got him at 4 if Carter and Hunter are off the board?
No, I think he'd be my next guy that I would ask for, just because we can load up on the defensive line, see what happens everywhere else. But it'd be interesting. I think there'd be conversations about a trade back, but I don't know. It seems like the quarterback thing is going to be difficult to try and convince the team to move up for that. Is there a way to convince is the team going to try and move up for someone like Ashton Jeanty? Something like that could happen. I think that where they trade back, but I wouldn't be it. That would probably be if we have to take a person, that'd probably be my next pick.
Yeah. Well, let's move on. First, who'd you have at number 5?
Tyleek Williams, kind of same thing as everyone else. He's kind of just a menace. He takes up bodies, he takes up space, and he's very good at that. And he's just very, very strong. That's very noticeable when he plays. But he does not have any pass protection whatsoever. That is just not part of his skill set. But he's gonna swallow up bodies in the run defense.
Yeah, and I had him at 6. Kind of exactly the same thing. Really good run defender, just as good of a run defender as a lot of these other guys we're talking about. But just like he can't be out there on third downs.
Yeah. I mean that's just kind of where he's at. It's fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, want to move on to off-ball linebacker?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, well, let's get into this. We're going only in top 3 because I don't think this is a great off-ball linebacker class. But there are 3 that I like to talk about, so we can jump into it. Starting off with, don't confuse him with a basketball player. It's Chris Paul Jr. out of Ole Miss, who is, a guy who's very fast. He uses his speed to make plays. A really good blitzer. Very much a guy who his highlight reel is when he's unblocked type of stuff. He's not the most physical player. He's a small linebacker at just 6'1", 235. But for a day 2 pick, maybe I think I would consider it. I like him at best maybe as like a third rounder.
Yeah, I have him just 4th just because I think he's a little too small. I mean, we have seen that linebacker work more and more in the NFL. Obviously, like Nakobe Dean was a high-profile one, but like I still think it's a tougher thing to overcome, and I want to see that. But yeah, like you said, he flies around, he makes plays. We've seen that kind of archetype start to work more and more. So, I wouldn't be surprised if it works for him too.
Yeah. Again, I think this is a rough class. Did he make your top 3?
He was 4th.
4th. Okay. Well, let's go to number 2. Demetrius Knight out of South Carolina, who is going to be 25 in his rookie year. So that's not ideal. Did play well though. Did have good anticipation. Plays physical. He has good speed for being a 245 off-ball linebacker. Will take some tough angles, and again, took him a while. He's an older prospect. That just has to be factored in. But ultimately, a player who, again, I think could come in and for a day 2 pick be a effective enough player.
Yeah, I see the vision for him as well. Like you said, I think he processes the play well. But like you said, I think some of the angles for him are kind of tough, and he misses some tackles that way. And I think that's just the one thing. It's like I want to see a good tackler at middle linebacker. And that's something that I worry about with him.
Yeah, totally fair. Again, was he on your list?
He was 5th. But I also had Jalen Walker on my list. So.
All right, gotcha. Sure. Well, let's get into number 1 on my list, and then we can talk Jalen Walker after this. I'm going Jahad Campbell here, who is someone who I just think is a smart player. Knows. Sometimes he can be a little bit slow at making decisions. That's kind of intentional a little bit, but that is sometimes an issue. And sometimes he will cover grass a bit too much in coverage. So there are a little bit of those issues, but ultimately for a 21-year-old linebacker, you'll certainly live with that. He just finds ways to get to the ball carrier, knows, especially in run defense, knows how to get around guys and make the play work. Physical enough to tackle guys one-on-one, comes from a good level of competition. He's just a player I really like. And I'm all about the Jahad Campbell at 19 to Tampa Bay. I'm hoping this works out.
Yeah, he's definitely the one off-ball linebacker I would be okay in the first round. I think he almost approaches like middle linebacker like a running back. He's very patient. He just kind of sees the play develop and then attacks. And he almost has the luxury of doing it because he is so big, strong, and athletic and quick. And like I think those things kind of work in his favor. But yeah, I do think that patience goes a long way. In being able to decipher some plays as well. And as he gets more reps, he's going to be even quicker deciphering those plays. And I think he could be a star at that position. So I really like him too. I think he's good against the run. I think there is development, like you said, in coverage, but he has the skill set to be very good at that spot. And if he's the long-term Levante David replacement, I think that is a very good pick for a team like Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, I really like him. I have him. I'm trying to look at my notes again, but I have him currently as I have him as top 10 prospect right now. Although again, it's a weird draft. I have him as a mid first round grade, but that's top 10 prospect given the draft.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think that is I think that's a fair assessment. But yeah, it is not a strong class at all. I would agree.
Yeah. Did you have him at 1 or did you have someone else at 1?
I had him at 1. Yeah, no
Okay.
doubt.
Well, where did you have Jalen Walker?
I have him second on this list. I have him just off my first round board. He's an interesting player because I think he could play outside linebacker, he could play edge, and maybe he could play. I think his best position is off ball linebacker. I
Really?
don't. Yeah, I think he's physical and athletic. I think I just don't think he's a good enough pass rusher to play every down edge. And I think that if he's going to be bumped inside, I think he can use that more for good, and kind of be in coverage, maybe blitz, stuff like that. And I just think he's going to be better at that position.
I mean, quite frankly, I just don't like him at either position. I think is that like there's qualities I like with him, but I just don't like. I don't see him as an off-ball linebacker because I feel like he's just not good at that. Like I feel like he's like constantly getting himself out of position and isn't good at like being able to make the plays. So I think I kind of like him more as edge just because I think his skill set would translate there. But like, yeah, it's not like he's a great. Like I don't know. There are good qualities of him. He definitely has. He looks the part. When he uses his hands, he looks awesome. I just don't know what to do with a guy like Jalen Walker.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier to teach in the position? I don't know. We've seen this go very other ways, right? Like we had Xavier Collins, who was another like physically gifted player who started at an off-ball linebacker, really struggled, and has played. I don't think he's great, but he's pretty good as far as an edge rusher now. Is that sort of the scenario where you see him going, or do you see him trying to go the other way and someone trying to take his skill set and teach him the linebacker position, which isn't as like. I don't know. It's interesting because I think it's harder to learn, but at the same time, if you're good at it and physically gifted, you could be very, very valuable.
I mean, quite frankly, I thought he played better at edge than in college than off ball. I just didn't think he was very good at off ball linebacker in college. Like I thought that there was a lot of times, especially in coverage, where he just was nowhere near where he needed to be near.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna have to develop it. I mean, that was the Devin White thing, right? Like physically gifted, awesome, but you have to be able to stick with players out of the backfield, cover the middle of the field, and not get lost in those situations.
But it's just what kind of drives me crazy about the draft. It's like, okay, there are good edge rushers in this class. There are good off-ball linebackers in this class. Why are we taking a guy who does have, I think maybe more potential, but we have no idea if he's going to actually work in the NFL or not? Why are we taking him with a top 10 pick over some of these other guys?
Yeah. There's definitely an argument for it, but yeah, I think that we're always going to talk ourselves into young players with, tantalizing skill sets.
Kyle, what is it with Georgia players whose last name is Walker for me?
Hey, they recruit a lot of athletes. That's what it is, man.
Yeah, I guess so. Where would you draft him in? What do you think? First round pick? I have him a second round talent or a second round prospect. That's how I view it.
Yeah, I think he's a second round talent too. I think he, it's similar to what we said about Shamar Stewart. If you take him in the second round, go for it and figure it out. But he is going to take a long time to develop, I think.
Yeah. So looking at he is 11th on the consensus big board right now. See, that just feels crazy to me.
That is very high.
Yeah. Well, Kyle, we have almost gone through all the positions. All we have left is secondary players, so we can jump into that now, unless there was anyone else you want to talk about for off-ball linebackers.
My number 3 was Karsten Schweissinger. Just think he processes the game well. I think he's smart, and I just think those guys kind of figure it out. He's not the most physically gifted player at the position, but if you process well, if you get to the ball and you tackle, I think that works in the NFL.
Yeah, he's a bowling ball type player, right? Just goes all out, uses his speed to get there. The size thing, I feel like he can get overpowered in the NFL. So I had him at 4 on my list. But
yeah,
I stopped talking when you got a drink.
It's okay. Yeah, we can jump right into secondary players.
Okay, well, let's get into it. 10 players talk about. I feel like I just need to set up at the beginning. Travis Hunter, I'm just talking about him as a corner in this list. I'm not taking in his other stuff for this. It'll just be how he is as a corner. When we get to wide receivers next week, I'll do the same thing. Just talking about him as a wide receiver. Let's get into the list. Let's start off with number 10, a player who I have seen some people really like, Nick Emanuware, who I think that is, so he is someone who is safety. Again, we're doing all defensive backs together. Safety who Listen, I don't know if he's the best covers safety in the league. I think sometimes he will not always make the perfect read. But ultimately, I think should be just a quality safety, like a good, to me, round 2 draft pick that's going to be a good safety in the league for 10 years type of guy. What's the value in that? We can talk about it, but has good range. Will make the tackles, good size at 6'3". So ultimately, a player I like. I actually like this defensive back class. So even though it's 10, I do like him.
Yeah, I do like this defensive back class a lot. He's probably, he would be, if I were to continue my list, he'd probably be 11th. I like the corners more than the safeties, honestly, but I think it's, both seem solid. I just think he gets lost, it seems like, a little bit in some plays, and I think that's something that has to develop, but he is very athletic and very, very makes his presence felt when he hits people. So I do like that about him. I just think it's he still has to see more reps and get better at it.
Yeah, 24 on the consensus big board, a bit high for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't take him in the first round.
Yeah, but ultimately is a player who can play. Let's go to I have to get my notes together because I have both the cornerback and the safety notes. I don't know why I did it this way, but okay, here we go. Number 9 on my list, Shavin Revel Jr. out of East Carolina, a player who, so he ran a, how I like 40 time when it comes to corners. He ran a 4.40 after working at Amazon, working a shift at Amazon warehouse. He then ran a 4.40. That's a weird thing to happen, but yeah, I mean, he's a fast player. He has a really good athletic profile at 6'3", a 4'4" guy who maybe would be lower if he didn't work before. Plays physical. He is coming off an ACL injury, and quite frankly, he has injury history, and I think that's part of why his draft stock is lower as much as it is. But and there are some other issues on tape. Sometimes slow to get his head turned around. Sometimes gives up too much space. But ultimately, he's a prospect that I like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I have him number 9 as well. Like you said, this is a he's the biggest risk reward player of the draft. It feels like there is a very interesting skill set here. Like you mentioned, the speed, he is long. He has all this skill that could go a long way, but we saw him play Appalachian State and Old Dominion last year. And a team whose logo I don't even recognize. So, obviously the ACL injury, there's just not a lot of tape on him overall because of that injury history, like you mentioned. And yeah, I would have liked to see a little bit more, but the glimpses that we saw have been very good.
Yeah. We can move on. Again, we can plow ahead for some of the later players. Let's go to number 8 on my list is Xavier Watts. He is a safety out of Notre Dame. I think a guy who solid range. He's not the fastest safety in the world, but it's okay at it. He's usually in position and can cover guys one-on-one. So again, he's someone who I feel like is a safety who can also add value beyond just doing his job.
Yeah, a lot I really like about him. I have him 7th. I wouldn't, hate on him as a late first round pick, maybe second rounder though overall. He just gets to the ball, man. Like he has a tendency to just find the ball, anticipate throws. He's really good in that deep safety role. And, those are players historically that I really like too, as far as safeties go. I like safeties who just make plays, and it seems like he makes a lot of them.
This just feel like I feel like it's almost not worth drafting a safety in the first round because of how many good second round safeties there are.
Yeah, I mean, there is an argument for it. I mean, I think there's one at the top you probably talk yourself into, no doubt, because of kind of everything he can bring to the table. But everything beyond that, yeah, I wouldn't hate on people waiting for it at all.
Yeah, well, let's talk about one of those guys, Andrew Mukpa out of Texas, who is a player who, really good coverage. He has really good ball skills as well. Kind of a similar guy in a lot of ways. He can also cover guys one-on-one. Is a smaller guy, 6 feet, 190 pounds. That's not a huge, frame. And I think that's probably the biggest critique. Also, not the most physical player because of that. And he is a one-year wonder as well. I just feel like his coverage. I thought he did great in coverage last year. And so that's why I still feel comfortable taking him.
Yeah, same thing. Like he is just off my list again. Another safety that's just off my list. But like you said, he gets to the ball really well. He does a lot of that similar stuff. I don't know if he's athletically as I like him as much as a guy like Watts, but at the same time, if he's able to anticipate and make the play, he's going to make the play. He's not a good tackler either. That's the other thing.
No, definitely not. But again, and I guess this is tough because teams don't really play free safeties anymore. But he's a free safety. Oh, no, I did it again.
100.
Second
Yeah,
time
it's
now.
all
It's
good. Yeah, that was my fault that time. I took too long to take a drink. So
oh, it's okay.
yeah, he is definitely a free safety. He has to play that almost exclusively.
Okay, well, let's get into a corner. Maxwell Harrison out of Kentucky, a player who is coming off of a shoulder injury, and I think was better in 2023 than 2024. For corners, that doesn't concern me as much, just because kind of how the position works. Kyle, this guy ran a 4.29. You know I'm going to be a fan of him. He's a fast player who has ball skills, really good awareness, and he plays as physical as he can. He's 180 pounds. He's not a physical guy, but he does, he makes the most of it. Definitely someone who, because of that, though, is not a good run defender, and he can get grabby as well, which is kind of the concern. So that injury stuff, a lot to not like about him, and a lot to like about him.
Yeah, I do have him number 10 because he does compete.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he reminds me of the Baltimore rookie from last year, that was drafted in the first round.
Was that Nate Wiggins?
Yeah, Wiggins at times, because he also wasn't the biggest guy, but he competed hard. But yeah, I think there are definitely concerns because, like you said, he commits penalties. He's going to be too small to help a lot in the run game. But he is also going to be a guy who makes plays, and just he's going to be the kind of guy that makes a play and the entire team is energized because it stands out, and he just works harder than a lot of guys.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know. He just it's the weird thing, right? You can easily see him being an Eric Stokes being out of the league, and a few, or I guess Eric Stokes is still in the league, but not really being a starter by the end of his rookie contract. You can also see he's another kind of boomer bust type of guy, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean there is a lot to be excited about, but I think that the issues I have is like you're not going to play a lot of man with this guy on your team, and he has a limited skill set as far as what else he could provide. But if you put a zone coverage scheme with him, I think he could be a very good player.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to number 5. My top safety on the list, who's going to be at number 5. I have him around where most people have him. Malachi Starks, out of Georgia, who's 21 years old, runs a 4.5, which is good for a safety. He's just constantly in position. He can cover one-on-one. He's a good tackler. Just usually does what you want to see him do as a safety. He definitely can be a bit over aggressive at times, and another guy who was better in 2023 than 2024. But ultimately, I just think that he's a good safety who's going to constantly be in position and do his job well.
Yeah, I have a number 3. I think he has I think he's like you said, an incredibly smart player. He's in position. Reminds me a lot in some ways of Jabril Pepper sometimes, of just like he kind of makes a lot of plays happen. Maybe he doesn't have quite the same ball skills, I feel like, at times as Peppers does. But yeah, I just think that there is a very tantalizing skill set here. I think he's a very good football player, along with being a pretty good athlete as well. So I think all that put together, I really like him. I think he's the best safety in the draft.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone reminds me of Jabril Peppers. That guy's a unicorn.
Yeah, I mean he is different in a lot of ways, but like I just think in the same vein of a lot of those like really good playmaking safeties, I think he could be that in some capacity.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, again, I think Pepper's part of his physicality was a big part of it. Although Starks, he can tackle well. Like he's good at that stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot to really like about him for sure.
All right. Well, number 4, top 4 defensive backs here. I got a couple of. So I got, as I mentioned, I have 4 corners here. This is a player who I guess I'm just a touch lower on than other people are. We'll talk about him. Will Johnson, who some people have very high on their list. I still like him. Again, number 4 in a good corner class, in my opinion. I just don't love how he is at man coverage. I think he's very good in zone. I think that the man is a little bit issue. I think sometimes he also will kind of coast, thinking he knows what he's, because he has such good instincts in zone. Sometimes he almost plays to a disadvantage where he sort of just lets himself, let things go and then gets burned. But for the most part, again, he moves in very well for his zone corner. I think he really fits that well. He plays physical, which you need to do for his zone cover corner. So I think needs to be in the right situation. There's also some technique things that could be an issue. I guess the other 2 concerns. Best year was in 2022, so we're several years away from his best year. And he did miss a lot of last year with turf toe, and then he missed the pro day with a hamstring injury. So that's a little bit concerning as well. But ultimately, I like the positives enough to still say that this is a first-round player.
Yeah, I do have him fourth as well, so we're in agreement on this one. A lot to like about his skill set as far as, he might be the best zone coverage corner in the draft. I think
Hmm.
that is something, that is probably the difference between where his lack of versatility compared to someone like Harrison, although Harrison is smaller too, so that plays a part in it. But yeah, he may be the best zone coverage corner in the draft. So that is something to really like. The one thing is, can a team ever play man with him? Because like you said, if they see man coverage, based on his tape, he could get beat over the top a lot. That is something that he gets kind of beat on historically, and is that something he's going to be able to develop over time?
Yeah, and it's just like, are you gonna? I mean, I kind of see him as like perfect, maybe in like a Cincinnati Bengals scheme where like you just don't have to do that much. But it's the kind of thing where sometimes you draft a guy saying, oh well, we don't really, the Chiefs signing Jawan Taylor saying, well, we don't run the ball anyway, and then because of the situation, they find themselves being a run heavy team, and like things go weird. Sometimes you think you're gonna do one thing and do something else, and like that's just the issue. Is when do you want to draft a guy who you feel like can only play a specific scheme?
Yeah. Some of those free safeties we mentioned, if you had him with one of those free safeties, I think that also really helped.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but that is the flip side, right? What you're saying of like, if you get the right situation, it could be very well.
Yeah, he could be a Pro Bowler for sure.
Yeah. Okay, Kyle, let's go with a hot take here. Someone who I think some people like, but I am very much going out on a limb. He's currently projected to go 40th on the consensus big board, but I like him more than that. Give me Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, my number 3 defensive back. Feels like every defensive back thing, I have one guy that I'm way higher on. Last year, I had Coy McKinstry as my cornerback 1. Yeah, I like Amos. I like him a lot. I think he's a physical player. He's only 190 pounds, and that's the issue. And for a 4'3", 190-pound guy, a lot of people are going to say like, okay, well, what are we doing here? But I don't know. I think he's physical. I think he's an impact player in run defense. Not just like gets the job done, but like is actively like a benefit in run defense. Really quick-footed guy. I think he can play both man and zone. He uses his hands very well. He reminds me of like Carlton Davis, of just like a really good, does his job corner, plays physical, and can get the job done. And if he goes up against Tyreek Hill, he's going to give up 200 yards in the first quarter. Like that's just how I view Trey Amos.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. I have him 5th. He is my
Okay.
4th corner on the board, so he's just behind Will Johnson from me. But yeah, I mean, I think that there is a pretty complete player here who you wish was a little bit bigger and a little bit faster, but he's still pretty fast and he still competes at a high enough level that I think he could do kind of a little bit of everything. So I'm a big fan of his. And yeah, I think that this is I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of the best corners in this draft, no doubt.
Kyle, you have to stop agreeing with me on everything. I keep trying to give hot takes, and then you're like, oh, yeah, I also have him basically that spot.
We spend too much time on this podcast together. That's all
I
it
think
is.
so. I think so. I was like, oh, man, no one's going to see this Trey Amos pick coming.
Yeah. Yeah, he's my 4th corner.
I was like, oh, man, James Pierce at 2. That's going to get Kyle to his mind blown. Then you have him at 2 also.
Well, maybe we'll have some disagreements in the next podcast. That's fine.
Okay. Yes. Maybe for the offense. We'll see. Hey, maybe something for top 2. I doubt it, but we'll see. I have Jody Barron as my number 2 corner. I'm with everybody else. I think he's really good. I like him more as a zone guy, but I think he can play me. He's the guy who, like, unlike Will Johnson, where I'm like, he has to play zone. I'm like, this is the guy who should be a zone corner, but if he needs to play man, then sure, because he has a really good understanding of zone. He also plays very physical, and he can stop and start on a dime, which is something you want to look at. Is a bit older and is a one-year wonder, and that's kind of the scariest thing. Also plays a little bit off, but ultimately a corner who I think could be a really, really good player.
Yeah, one of the more fun players I watched this season as far as defensive players go. He, moved all around the field. They used him in several different things. He's not as physically impressive or like dominant, which is why he's not going to go top 5 like this player did. But, they had so much of it was almost like a Jalen Ramsey in college thing where they had him play nickel outside and safety, and he was pretty good in all of them. Like it was, like I said, he's not as physically gifted as Jalen Ramsey, so I'm not going to say he's going to be that level of a prospect because that's a different level of player. But he was good in a lot of different positions, and they asked him to do a lot, and he excelled in a lot of it. So yes, it's a one-year wonder, but it felt like he was doing 3 positions at once in that 1 year. So I think he's very impressive, and I'm excited to see what he could do in the NFL.
And unlike some players where it's like, oh, they're versatile, but what are they good at? That we talk like a Jalen Walker. It's like, oh, he's versatile and good at these positions as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he did it all very well. That was the thing that was very exciting. So I'm excited to see him in the NFL, and I'm interested to see how he's deployed in the NFL. I think it's a big thing too. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up as just like a pure nickelback. As far as shout out to Nickelback. Um,
The band?
I, yeah, I,
Okay. If they're listening, yeah, shout out Nickelback, I guess.
yeah, let's do it. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a pure nickel corner though in the NFL. But I think he could be one of the better nickel corners in the NFL if that's where he ends up at.
Are you saying it could be a rock star, perhaps?
Yeah.
All right, that's our Nickelback humor for the.
There you go.
Ideally, I like him as like a late teens type of player, but I think in this draft, like even a top 10 pick, I haven't evaluated all the offensive linemen yet, but I don't think I'm gonna get into another top 10 picks. So right now, he's probably gonna be number 10 on my big board.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all.
But let's get into a guy who I'm just gonna say is number 1 on my big board, Travis Hunter. I mean, he's he's incredible. Again, we'll just talk about the corner for a second. He is my number one number one corner, just period. We can talk about him a bit as a receiver as well. I think that, we don't have to just talk about him this way, but he's okay. First off, 4.3 speed. I like that. He does not get ran by. Sometimes he will wait a little bit. He'll be a little bit patient, and that can hurt him on a slant here and there. But for the most part, he's fast enough to come back from the receivers. And I think he'll adjust in the NFL if he has to. Always looks for the ball, and he's fast enough to not have to play the receiver, so he can, he has good ball skills, and obviously we know he has good ball skills because he's a receiver as well. The footwork and the way that he moves back and forth and can start and stop is just so incredible. Again, the low level of competition has to be mentioned. And he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's 185 pounds. So those are the two biggest concerns you have. But as a corner, he's worth a top 5 pick. When you throw in, he's also a great receiver. He's the most, because the way I see it is, hey, it's a fail safe. If he doesn't work at corner, you can try him at receiver. If he doesn't work at receiver, you can try him at corner. So you have that extra kind of plan B, and maybe you can try him at both. So huge fan of Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I like Travis Hunter a lot. I watched him a fair amount in high school too in Georgia, and he was on the short list of guys that just played and moved different to me. He's probably in that top 5 for me as far as athletes go. He is incredibly quick, like you said. I guess the one little nitpick is I think he can get shoved off the ball sometimes. And that is probably the one point of criticism, but his technique was refined in high school, and then he went and worked with Deion Sanders. Of course, he's going to be very good at that. And, there's a little bit of that, I would say the best I've ever seen at it is Darrelle Revis, where it's almost like he's miming the receiver, and he's just I'm just going to follow you, and you're just not shaking me. I'm on your hip the entire time, and I'm too fast for you to get past me. It's almost like one of those things that he has that sort of skill set that is impressive when it happens in motion, and I think it's a very neat thing that he can do. And I just think he's a very, very skilled player, and I think he's a better corner than receiver, and he's a very good receiver. So he is my number 1 player in the draft, and he is someone I've been very excited to watch.
Darrelle Revis, the guy who played for both of our favorite teams.
Worked out better for one than the other.
I think so. I think maybe it worked out better for a team that won a Super Bowl with him than a team that traded a first-round pick and then got rid of him the year after. That was not our best. That was the Buccaneers were not necessarily known for being a great franchise in that moment.
Yeah, that was a bit of a rough tenure for you guys.
Yes, okay. We have a super chat. Sorry I didn't get to it. Overlap's already annoyed that we didn't get to it quicker. I apologize, Overlap. We're getting to it. Sometimes we gotta let the show go with the flow of the show for a second, Overlap. When is the show ranking the top mods of this channel? What kind of kangaroo court is this? Well, it's just you and my brother, so I guess you first and my brother second in terms of mods of the channel.
I would have Jackson for you can mod the channel.
Oh, I guess so. I don't know if it counts as a mod though. I think it's the old thing, right?
Well, I'm counting you. It's okay. I would have Jackson first, Jimmy second, and then Overlap third.
Wow. Hot take. Is Overlap a first round talent out of mod?
I think he might be a day 3 guy.
Oh no, a day 3. Not even the back half of the 3rd round.
Yeah, no, I think he's got some work to do. He's got some polishing of his game for sure.
Someone in the chat says Hunter is a prima donna. Okay, so more positives for Travis Hunter at corner.
Yeah, I don't know.
The thing, I always like the Deion Sanders thing because, like, usually the great athletes aren't great coaches at what they're supposed to do. Because it's like, what do you mean you can't just run as fast as that guy, right? I think this is like the perfect scenario of not only if like Deion Sanders
You can
basically
also
getting
run
like,
as fast as that
yeah,
guy.
exactly, like another like ridiculous elite athlete.
Yeah. He is very good at coaching elite athletes, it seems, because he coached him up very well. The rest of
Mhm.
Colorado, I think, could still use some work. Although they had a good year. They played better. So maybe he is just good at this. But yeah, it is Dion does seem like a rare person in that sort of situation. But yeah, I mean, having a player like Travis Hunter, I think, could solve a lot of his problems because he could play 90 snaps a game.
Overlap wants to fight you.
Listen, I got to be true to my draft grades. It's fine. It's fine. You got some work to cut out for you. You can prove me wrong for sure.
You're gonna get banned. Your account that you comment on is gonna get banned.
I'm getting blocked myself.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Do you agree with the take that a lot of people have of like, I feel like it's like play him at corner. I think the Browns should draft him, play him at corner, and then give him as many receiver reps as you can, basically, and see if you can extend it. And if it's too much, then just have him play corner. And if it's not too much, have him play more receiver reps. That's how I view it.
Yes. Yeah, I would play him at corner first. That would be my primary position for him. But yeah, if I can sprinkle him in on the offense, I think even better. But I also think it's going to be dependent on which team he goes to. If he does manage to fall into New England, they have Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez. Is their priority going to be that or trying to help the offense? I think that could be a debate for whoever ends up getting him.
I don't know if he's. I know hopeful thinking, Kyle, but I don't know if he's going to quite fall there.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where it seemed like Shedeur might go top 2, or something crazy might happen. But especially with the Giants desperately needing a corner and the Browns kind of needing a corner too, I think there's no chance we're getting them.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are easily the two best. We kind of made jokes about Joe Milton game, whatever. You're still going to get a good player, and then you fall to 4, and there's like 3 like blue chip players, and then like some good players.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's working in our favor. The hope was that quarterbacks would go first 2 picks, or at least 2 of the first 3. Now it seems like just one quarterback's going to go first.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Kyle, but still a lot of fun to talk about. Hey, you'll get a good player at 4, whoever it ends up being, maybe, or we'll see. But yeah, Kyle, that is our show. Let them know where they can find us on Twitter before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Of course, if you like audio only podcasts, anywhere you get your podcast, search On the Sideline Podcast. We should be available there. Next week, we were doing the offense. So same thing as this video. We're just going on the offensive side of the ball. Going to do the same thing. I figure we'll do top 5 running backs, top 5 tight ends, top 5 offensive line, and then top 10 wide receivers.
Yeah, I'll have you text me that again. So
yeah, I'll text you, but sure. Maybe the chat at home wants to make their list.
Yeah, they could all take part. It's a group effort here.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's what we will do. Kyle, I went to my first NBA game the other day.
Oh yeah,
it was yesterday. Yeah, it was fun. Magic won.
There you go. Yeah. Good stuff. I mean, they're going to be gearing up here for the play-ins, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle it.
Yeah, there was like this we were in like the Trae Young supporter section or something. Like the Atlanta fans were like going crazy the whole time. Like what are you like? This is a $20 ticket game. Like what are you guys doing?
Atlanta fans travel, I guess, man.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Kyle, any final thoughts? You ready to get out of here?
No, let's get out of here. Gonna go eat dinner and then I guess watch this Luka Mavericks game. So
okay, there you go. Someone asked, are you gonna get if Travis Hunter falls to 4, are you doing the day 1 jersey?
Yeah, I might do that. If he manages to go to the Patriots, or maybe they trade up for him. We'll see.
Yeah, the Shedeur Sanders at 2. That would just be you're popping champagne already, right?
Yeah, although the problem is we're still not getting him. I'd be happy with Abdul Carter.
Well, but then you get Abdul. Yeah, you get one of the top guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too upset with that. But yeah, I would be very happy if a quarterback, maybe the Giants are, doing some smoke screen here. Maybe they're looking quarterback at 3.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Yeah, again, thank you to everybody for watching or listening. We do appreciate it. We'll see you next week. And until then, have a good one.
Peace.